The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of room 214, casting long shadows across the rows of desks where 28 fifth graders sat waiting for class to begin. Maya Torres fidgeted with her pencil, tapping it gently against her notebook while watching Mrs. Peterson write something on the whiteboard. It was a Tuesday just like any other until it wasn't. "All right, everyone, settle down," Mrs. Peterson said, turning to face the class with a warm smile. "I have some exciting news to share with you all." The chatter died down as students shifted in their seats, curious about what their teacher had to say. Maya sat up a little straighter, her dark eyes fixed on Mrs. Peterson. "In 2 weeks, we're going to have career day," Mrs. Peterson announced, her voice full of enthusiasm. "Your parents or guardians are invited to come in and talk about what they do for work. It's a wonderful opportunity for all of you to learn about different professions and maybe even discover what you might want to do when you grow up." The classroom erupted into excited whispers. Kids immediately started talking to their neighbors about their parents' jobs. Maya felt a flutter of excitement in her chest. She knew exactly what her mom did, and it was something she'd always been proud of, even if she didn't fully understand all the technical details. "My dad's a surgeon," said Kevin from the front row, his voice carrying across the room. "He saves people's lives every single day." "That's wonderful, Kevin," Mrs. Peterson said, nodding approvingly. "My mom runs her own restaurant," chimed in Lily, beaming with pride. "She makes the best dumplings in the whole city." More hands shot up as students eagerly shared what their parents did. There was a police officer, a construction company owner, a high school principal, and a professional photographer. Each announcement was met with interested oohs and ahs from classmates. Maya waited patiently, her hand raised halfway. She wasn't the type to push herself forward or demand attention. Her grandmother always told her that quiet confidence speaks louder than bragging. Finally, Mrs. Peterson noticed her. "Yes, Maya. What does your mother do?" Maya took a breath and said simply, "My mom works at NASA." For a moment, there was complete silence. Then it happened. Derek Chen, who sat 2 rows behind her, burst out laughing. It wasn't a small chuckle or a polite giggle. It was loud, disbelieving laughter that seemed to bounce off the walls. Within seconds, several other kids joined in. "Yeah, right," Derek said between laughs. "Sure she does." "Come on, that's not even realistic," added Rachel, shaking her head with a smirk. Maya felt her face grow hot. Her fingers gripped the edge of her desk as the laughter continued. She looked at Mrs. Peterson, hoping her teacher would say something, do something to make it stop. "Class, that's enough," Mrs. Peterson said firmly, clapping her hands together. "We do not laugh at our classmates. Every profession is important and worthy of respect." The laughter died down, but the damage was already done. Maya could feel eyes on her, could hear the whispered conversation starting up around the room. She stared down at her desk, wishing she could disappear into the floor. Maya's probably just confused. Someone whispered loud enough for others to hear. Maybe her mom works near NASA or something. Or maybe she cleans the buildings there, another voice added with a snicker. Mrs. Peterson shot a warning look around the classroom, and the whispers stopped. But Maya could still feel the doubt hanging in the air like a thick fog. The rest of the morning dragged by slowly. Math problems blurred together on the page. During reading time, Maya found herself staring at the same paragraph over and over without absorbing a single word. When lunchtime finally arrived, Maya grabbed her lunch bag and headed to her usual spot in the cafeteria. Her best friend Zoe was already there, unpacking her sandwich. "Don't listen to them," Zoe said immediately, reaching across the table to squeeze Maya's hand. "I believe you." "Thanks," Maya said quietly. But even Zoe's support couldn't completely erase the sting of embarrassment. As they ate, Maya couldn't help but overhear conversations from nearby tables. Derek and his friends were being particularly loud. "There's no way her mom works at NASA," Derek was saying to a group of boys. "I mean, come on. Look at where they live. My dad says NASA only hires the smartest people in the world." "What's that supposed to mean?" one of his friends asked. Derek shrugged. "I'm just saying people like that don't usually become astronauts or whatever." Maya's hands clenched into fists under the table. She wanted to march over there and tell Derek exactly how wrong he was, but the words stuck in her throat. What if she said something and they just laughed at her again? What if she made it worse? "You should tell Mrs. Peterson," Zoe suggested, noticing Maya's distress. "What they're saying isn't fair." It won't matter, Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. They won't believe me until they see it for themselves. The afternoon was no better. During science class, when they were learning about the solar system, Derek made a point of raising his hand and asking loudly, "Hey, Mrs. Peterson, maybe Maya's mom can tell us about Mars since she works at NASA." The sarcasm in his voice was impossible to miss. A few kids snickered. Mrs. Peterson gave Derek a stern look and told him that kind of attitude wouldn't be tolerated, but the comment had already hit its mark. By the time the final bell rang, Maya felt exhausted. She gathered her books slowly, waiting until most of the other students had left before making her way to the bus. As she walked down the hallway, she heard footsteps behind her. "Hey, Maya, wait up." She turned to see Zoe jogging to catch up with her. "Are you okay?" Zoe asked, genuine concern in her eyes. Maya shrugged. "I guess. I just don't understand why they think I would lie about something like that." "Because they're ignorant," Zoe said matter-of-factly. "My mom says some people can't imagine things being different from what they expect. But you know what? In 2 weeks, when your mom shows up, they're all going to feel really stupid." Maya managed a small smile. "If she comes?" "What do you mean, if?" "Of course she'll come. She's really busy," Maya explained as they walked toward the bus loop. "Sometimes she has important meetings or projects with tight deadlines. What if she can't make it? What if something comes up?" The thought had been gnawing at her all day. Her mom did work incredibly hard, often staying up late on video calls with team members from different time zones or traveling to different NASA facilities. What if career day happened to fall on a day when her mom absolutely couldn't get away? "Then she'll explain why, and Mrs. Peterson will understand," Zoe said confidently. "But I bet she'll move mountains to be there, especially after what happened today." Maya nodded, but the seed of doubt had been planted. As the bus pulled up and she climbed aboard, she couldn't shake the worry that maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't be able to prove them wrong after all. The ride home seemed longer than usual. Maya stared out the window, watching the familiar streets roll by. She thought about all the times her mom had shown her pictures from work, the miniature models of spacecraft on her home office desk, the NASA badge she wore on a lanyard. It was all real. Her mom really did work there, so why did everyone act like it was impossible? When the bus finally stopped at her corner, Maya trudged up the sidewalk to her house, her backpack feeling heavier than usual. She turned her key in the lock and pushed open the front door, not sure whether she wanted to tell her mom what had happened or just pretend the day had been fine. The smell of coffee drifted from the home office down the hall. Her mom was probably in the middle of work. Maya dropped her backpack by the stairs and took a deep breath. One way or another, she was going to have to ask. She just hoped her mom would say yes. Maya stood in the hallway for a moment, gathering her courage. The sound of her mom's voice drifted from the office, speaking in that focused, professional tone she used during work calls. Maya recognized a few words, technical terms she'd heard before but didn't fully understand: trajectory, calibration, data analysis. She walked quietly toward the office and peeked through the half-open door. Her mom, Elena Torres, sat at her desk surrounded by 3 computer monitors. Complex graphs and charts filled each screen, lines of numbers scrolling down one side. Even though Maya didn't understand most of it, she'd always found it fascinating to watch her mom work. Elena glanced up and noticed her daughter standing in the doorway. Her serious expression immediately softened into a warm smile. She held up one finger, the universal signal for just one more minute, and wrapped up her call. "Sounds good. I'll have those calculations ready by tomorrow morning," Elena said into her headset. "Yes, we're still on track for the simulation run on Friday." "Okay, talk to you then." She pulled off the headset and turned her full attention to Maya. "Hey, sweetie, how was school?" Maya walked into the office and sat down in the comfortable reading chair in the corner, the one she'd claimed as her own years ago whenever she wanted to do homework near her mom. For a moment, she didn't say anything, just picked at a loose thread on her jeans. "That kind of day, huh?" Elena said, her voice gentle. She rolled her chair closer to Maya. "What happened?" The whole story came tumbling out. Maya told her about career day, about saying she worked at NASA, about Derek's loud laughter and the way other kids had joined in. She explained the whispers at lunch, the sarcastic comment during science class, and the horrible feeling of not being believed. "And the worst part," Maya said, her voice cracking slightly, is that they acted like it was impossible. Like someone like us couldn't work somewhere like NASA. Elena's jaw tightened and Maya saw a flash of something in her mother's eyes. Anger, maybe. Or sadness. Possibly both. "Come here," Elena said, opening her arms. Maya got up and hugged her mom tight. For a few seconds, they just stayed like that, and Maya felt some of the day's tension start to melt away. When they pulled apart, Elena kept her hands on Maya's shoulders and looked directly into her eyes. "First of all, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That must have felt awful." Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. "Second," Elena continued, "those kids are wrong. Not just wrong, but they're letting their limited imagination and prejudice do their thinking for them. And you know what we're going to do about it?" "What?" Maya asked. A determined smile spread across Elena's face. "We're going to show them exactly what's possible. Will you ask Mrs. Peterson if I can come to career day?" "Really? You'll come?" Maya felt a surge of hope mixed with anxiety. "But what if you have an important meeting or something? What if you're too busy?" Elena shook her head firmly. "Maya, listen to me. My job is important, yes, but you are more important, always. I'll make sure I'm there even if I have to move meetings around. This matters." "Promise?" Maya asked, needing to hear it. "I promise," Elena said, holding out her pinky finger. They linked pinkies and shook on it, sealing the deal the way they had since Maya was little. It was their thing, their unbreakable contract. Over the next few days, Maya noticed her mom making mysterious phone calls in the evening. She'd catch snippets of conversation as she passed by the office. "Hey, Rick, remember that outreach presentation we talked about? I need to call in that favor sooner than expected. Do you still have access to the educational equipment from the last school visit? I'm going to need the portable display system. Is it available the week of the 19th? Maya was curious but didn't want to ask too many questions. Part of her wanted to be surprised. Another part was afraid that knowing too much might somehow jinx it. At school, things hadn't gotten much better. Derek had mostly stopped making direct comments after Mrs. Peterson had warned him, but the doubt still lingered. During group projects, when they had to discuss what they wanted to be when they grew up, several kids made subtle digs. "I want to be a doctor like my dad," said Kevin. "It's actually realistic, you know." The emphasis on actually wasn't lost on anyone. Zoe remained Maya's steadfast supporter. "Just wait," she told anyone who would listen. "You're all going to feel really dumb in a week and a half." "Whatever," Rachel said, rolling her eyes. "Some of us live in reality." One afternoon, about a week before career day, Maya came home to find her mom unloading a large cardboard box from the car. The NASA logo was printed clearly on the side. "What's that?" Maya asked, dropping her backpack on the porch and running over to help. "Just some materials for the presentation," Elena said, carefully lifting the box. "Don't worry. Nothing that will break, but it's a bit heavy." They carried it inside together and set it down in the living room. Maya looked at her mom expectantly. "Can I see?" Elena laughed. "Nice try. You'll see it when everyone else does. I want your reaction to be genuine." "That's not fair," Maya protested, but she was smiling. That evening, as they ate dinner together, Maya worked up the courage to ask the question that had been bothering her. "Mom, did you ever have something like this happen to you? Like, did people not believe you could do what you do?" Elena set down her fork and leaned back in her chair, thinking. "You know what? Yes, many times." "Really?" "Really," Elena confirmed. "When I was in college, I was one of only 3 women in my advanced engineering classes, and I was the only Latina. There were professors who would call on the guys first, assuming they'd know the answers better. There were study groups that didn't invite me because they assumed I'd slow them down." "What did you do?" Maya asked. "I studied harder. I proved myself over and over again. And eventually most people came around. The ones who didn't? That was their problem, not mine." Elena reached across the table and took Maya's hand. "Here's what I learned. People's doubts about you say more about their limitations than yours. Their lack of imagination isn't your burden to carry. But it still hurts, Maya said quietly. It does, Elena agreed. And that's okay. You're allowed to feel hurt. But don't let their doubt make you doubt yourself. You know the truth. I know the truth, and soon your whole class will know the truth too. The weekend before career day, Maya's grandmother came over for Sunday dinner like she always did. Abuela noticed immediately that something was weighing on Maya's mind. What's wrong, mija? She asked in Spanish, pulling Maya aside while Elena was in the kitchen. Maya explained the situation and Abuela listened carefully, nodding occasionally. When Maya finished, her grandmother cupped her face gently. You know what your grandfather used to say? Abuela asked. He said that ignorance is loud, but truth is patient. Those children are being loud right now because they don't know any better, but truth doesn't need to shout, it just needs to show up. What if they still don't believe it even after Mom comes? Maya asked. Abuela smiled. Then that's their choice, but you'll know you stood by the truth. That's what matters. On Monday morning, Maya walked into school with a different feeling in her chest. Not quite confidence, but something close to it. Mrs. Peterson had confirmed that Elena was on the list for career day, scheduled for Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. My mom's definitely coming, Maya told Zoe at lunch. I knew she would, Zoe said, giving her a high five. Derek and his friends are going to be so embarrassed. I hope so, Maya said. But secretly, she hoped for something more than just embarrassment. She hoped they'd learn something. She hoped they'd understand that their assumptions about who could do what were wrong. During science class that afternoon, they were learning about Mars. Mrs. Peterson pulled up pictures of the red planet on the classroom smartboard. These images were taken by the Perseverance rover, she explained. It's currently exploring the Jezero crater, looking for signs of ancient microbial life. Maya stared at the images, thinking about how her mom had shown her similar pictures at home. Her mom had explained that she worked on some of the systems that helped the rover analyze rock samples. Maya had touched the keyboard that sent commands to another planet. How could her classmates think that was impossible? After class, as everyone was packing up, Derek walked past Maya's desk. For a second, their eyes met. He looked like he wanted to say something, but then just kept walking. Maya wondered if maybe, just maybe, some small part of him was starting to doubt his own doubts. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Thursday, about what would happen when her mom walked through that classroom door. Would it be enough? Would people really change their minds? Or would they find some other reason to dismiss it? She got out of bed and padded down the hall to her mom's office. The light was still on. Elena was reviewing something on her computer, making notes on a pad of paper beside her. Can't sleep? Elena asked without looking up. Nervous, Maya admitted. Elena saved her work and turned to face her daughter. Me too, actually. Really? You get nervous? Of course, Elena said. Every time I give a presentation, every time I submit a proposal, every time I'm being evaluated, being nervous means you care. It means it matters to you. What if something goes wrong on Thursday? Maya asked. Then we handle it, Elena said simply. But you know what? I have a feeling everything's going to go exactly the way it should. Thursday morning arrived with Maya's alarm clock sounding louder than usual. She'd barely slept, tossing and turning all night, playing out different scenarios in her head. Now that the day was finally here, her stomach felt like it was doing backflips. She got dressed carefully, choosing her favorite shirt, the blue one with stars on it that her mom had brought back from a NASA event. It felt like armor somehow, like wearing it would give her extra courage. At breakfast, Elena was already dressed in dark pants and a crisp NASA polo shirt. The logo sat proudly on the left side of her chest, official and unmistakable. She was calmer than Maya expected, sipping her coffee and reviewing notes on her tablet. You ready? Elena asked, looking up with an encouraging smile. I think so, Maya said, though her voice came out smaller than she intended. Are you? Absolutely, Elena said with confidence. I've got everything loaded in the car. We'll leave a little early so I can set up before the presentation start. The drive to school felt both too long and too short at the same time. Maya kept glancing at her mom, who seemed completely relaxed, humming along to the radio. In the back seat, Maya could see several cases and bags that Elena had carefully packed the night before. When they pulled into the school parking lot, Maya spotted several other parents already arriving. Kevin's dad was getting out of a Mercedes, wearing scrubs with a stethoscope around his neck. Rachel's mom carried a professional camera with multiple lenses. Everything looked so official, so real. "Mom," Maya said suddenly, her anxiety spiking. "What if they still don't believe you? What if they think you're just pretending or something?" Elena turned off the car and shifted to face Maya directly. "Then that's their problem, not ours. But trust me, sweetie, after today there won't be any doubt left. Now come on, let's go show them what's possible." They walked into the school together, Elena pulling a small rolling case behind her while carrying a larger bag over her shoulder. Maya led the way to room 214, her heart pounding harder with each step. Mrs. Peterson was already in the classroom, arranging chairs and preparing the space for visitors. Her face lit up when she saw Elena. "Dr. Torres, it's so wonderful to meet you," Mrs. Peterson said, shaking Elena's hand warmly. "Maya's told me so much about your work. I have to admit I'm really excited to hear your presentation." "Thank you for having me," Elena said graciously. "I brought quite a bit of equipment. Would it be all right if I set up in the corner? I'll need access to your projector if that's possible." "Of course. Let me help you get situated." Maya watched as her mom unpacked with practiced efficiency. She connected a laptop to the projector, set up a portable screen on a stand, and arranged several items on a display table that she covered with a cloth. Whatever was under there, she clearly wanted it to be a surprise. Other students started trickling in, followed by more parents. Maya took her seat, hyper-aware of every whisper and glance. Zoe rushed over immediately. "Is that her?" Zoe whispered excitedly, nodding toward Elena. "Yeah," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. "She looks so cool. And look at all that stuff she brought." Derek arrived with his father, a tall man in an expensive suit who carried himself with obvious self-importance. Derek glanced at Elena, then at Maya, his expression unreadable. He sat down without saying anything. Mrs. Peterson called the class to order as the clock struck 9:30. "Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Career Day. We have some wonderful presentations lined up for you today. Remember to be respectful, listen carefully, and save your questions for the end of each presentation." The first presenter was Kevin's dad, Dr. Patterson, the surgeon. He was engaging and brought actual surgical tools to show the class, including a real stethoscope that he let kids try on. He talked about saving lives and the importance of going to medical school. It was impressive, and Maya found herself genuinely interested, even as her nervousness continued to build. Next came Lily's mom, who owned a restaurant. She brought samples of dumplings for everyone and talked about the challenges of running a small business. The food was delicious, and the class peppered her with questions about cooking. Then it was Derek's father's turn. Mr. Chen talked about real estate development, showing pictures of buildings and shopping centers his company had constructed. He spoke confidently about money, investments, and success. Derek sat up straighter in his seat, clearly proud. "And that's why education and hard work lead to success," Mr. Chen concluded, his eyes sweeping the room. "You can achieve anything if you set your mind to it and come from a good foundation." The way he said "good foundation" made Maya's skin prickle. It felt like there was a hidden meaning there, something about having the right background or the right family. She saw her mom's expression tighten slightly, but Elena remained composed. A few more parents presented. A police officer who brought in safety equipment, a graphic designer who showed the class how she created logos on her computer, and a veterinarian who shared x-rays of animals she'd treated. Finally, Mrs. Peterson stood up and smiled at the class. "For our last presentation today, we have Dr. Elena Torres, Maya's mother. Dr. Torres works as an aerospace engineer at NASA. I'm sure we're all very curious to hear about her work." The room went dead quiet. Maya felt every muscle in her body tense. This was it. This was the moment everything would change. Elena stood up and walked to the front of the room with confident, measured steps. She didn't look nervous at all. She looked like someone who had given hundreds of presentations before, someone who belonged exactly where she was standing. "Good morning," Elena began, her voice clear and professional. "My name is Dr. Elena Torres, and I've been working at NASA for the past 18 years. Specifically, I'm an aerospace engineer specializing in robotic systems for planetary exploration. She clicked a button on her laptop, and the projector screen filled with the NASA logo. The official seal, with its blue circle, white stars, and red chevron, dominated the display. There was no mistaking its authenticity. Maya glanced around the room. Derek's smirk had vanished. Rachel sat forward in her seat, eyes wide. Even Mr. Chen, Derek's father, looked surprised. Before I tell you what I do, Elena continued, let me tell you a little about how I got here. I grew up in a small town in Texas. My parents worked in a factory. We didn't have much money. When I told my high school counselor I wanted to be an engineer, she suggested I consider something more practical. She paused, letting that sink in. But I loved science. I loved math. I loved figuring out how things worked. So I studied hard, got scholarships, went to college, and eventually earned my doctorate in aerospace engineering. And now the code I write travels to other planets. She clicked to the next slide, and a massive image of Mars filled the screen. The red surface stretched out in incredible detail, showing rocks, craters, and distant hills. This is Mars, Elena said simply. And I helped send a robot there. The room was so quiet you could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Every single student sat frozen, staring at the image. Elena clicked again, and a new picture appeared. The Perseverance rover. A car-sized robot with 6 wheels, cameras, and a long mechanical arm. This is Perseverance. It landed on Mars in February 2021, and it's still working there right now as we speak. My team and I developed part of the software that controls its navigation system. That means some of the code I wrote is currently operating on another planet, helping this rover move around and avoid obstacles. She let that statement hang in the air for a moment before continuing. But let me make this more real for you. Everything you see in these images, every piece of data we receive from Mars, comes from actual hardware and software that people built here on Earth. Real people, with families and lives, who work together to do extraordinary things. Elena walked over to her display table, and that's what I want to show you today. Not just pictures, but something you can actually touch and experience. She pulled away the cloth covering the table, revealing what looked like a miniature version of a rover wheel and part of a robotic arm mechanism. Next to it sat a tablet displaying real-time data feeds. This is a replica of some of the rover's equipment built to scale. NASA uses these for education and outreach. With Mrs. Peterson's permission, you'll all get a chance to examine this up close after I finish presenting. A collective gasp went through the classroom. Even the adults in the room leaned forward to get a better look. Maya felt tears prick her eyes, but they were good tears. Pride swelled in her chest so strongly it almost hurt. That was her mom up there. Her mom, who had been doubted and dismissed, was now commanding the complete attention of everyone in the room. Elena continued her presentation, explaining in terms the students could understand how the rover collected samples, how it communicated with Earth, and what scientists hoped to discover on Mars. She showed video clips of the landing, images of the Martian surface, and graphs showing data the rover had collected, but it was what came next that really changed everything. Now, I want to talk about something important, Elena said, her tone shifting slightly. I'm standing here today as a Latina woman in a field where people like me have historically been underrepresented. When I started my career, there weren't many engineers who looked like me. That made things harder sometimes. Elena's words hung in the air like a challenge and an invitation all at once. She clicked to the next slide, and suddenly the screen filled with a photograph that made several students gasp out loud. It was Elena herself, standing in what was clearly a NASA control room. Behind her, massive screens displayed mission data, and around her stood other engineers in NASA gear. But what really caught everyone's attention was what she was holding. A plaque with her name engraved on it, commemorating her contributions to the Mars Perseverance mission. This photo was taken on landing day, Elena explained, February 18th, 2021. That was one of the most intense and amazing days of my life. Our team had worked for years preparing for that moment, and when Perseverance successfully touched down on Mars, we all cried. Grown adults, some of the smartest engineers in the world, crying tears of joy because we'd just landed a robot on another planet. She clicked through several more photos. Elena at her workstation, lines of code visible on her monitors. Elena in a clean room wearing a full protective suit, working on actual spacecraft components. Elena receiving an award from a NASA administrator. Each image was more undeniable than the last. Now, let me show you something really special, Elena said, her voice taking on a note of excitement. She pulled out her phone and connected it to the projector. This is something most people don't get to see. The screen changed to show what looked like a secure login page. Elena entered her credentials and suddenly they were looking at an internal NASA system. Real-time data from the Perseverance rover scrolled across the screen. Temperature readings, battery levels, system diagnostics. This is live, Elena said. Right now, as we sit here in this classroom, Perseverance is on Mars, and this is the actual data it's sending back. See that timestamp? That's Earth-received time, accounting for the 20-minute delay it takes for signals to travel from Mars to us. The room was absolutely silent except for the sound of Mrs. Peterson's slight gasp of amazement. Even Mr. Chen, Derek's father, looked genuinely impressed for the first time. Elena zoomed in on a section of data. See these numbers here? This is information from the navigation system I helped develop. These coordinates tell us exactly where the rover is on the Martian surface. And this data here, this is from the hazard avoidance cameras that help the rover drive without human control. Wait. Kevin spoke up, forgetting to raise his hand in his excitement. You mean it drives itself? Like without anyone controlling it? Exactly, Elena confirmed with a smile. Because of that 20-minute delay, we can't drive it in real time like a remote control car. So we program it to drive autonomously. It can identify obstacles, plan routes around them, and make decisions on its own. That's where my work comes in. I write code that helps the rover think for itself. She let that sink in for a moment before continuing. Now, I promised you could touch something real, not just look at pictures. So let's make this interactive. Elena walked over to the display table and picked up the rover wheel replica. She held it up so everyone could see, then began passing it around the room. This is built to the exact specifications of Perseverance's actual wheels. Notice how it's not like a car tire. Each wheel has these cleats, these ridges designed specifically for the Martian terrain. The pattern you see here, this zigzag design, actually spells out JPL in Morse code. JPL stands for Jet Propulsion Laboratory, where the rover was built. As the wheel made its way around the classroom, students examined it with careful hands, turning it over, feeling the weight of it, tracing the patterns with their fingers. When it reached Derek, he held it for a long moment, studying it closely before passing it on. Maya watched his face change from skepticism to something else. Wonder maybe, or possibly shame. Now for the really cool part, Elena said. She pulled out the tablet and opened an application. This is a simulation program we use for training and planning. It replicates the Martian environment and the rover's capabilities. Who wants to help me drive on Mars? Every hand in the room shot up instantly, including the adults. Even Derek's father raised his hand, looking almost childlike in his enthusiasm. Elena smiled. How about we let Maya go first? Maya's heart jumped into her throat. She hadn't expected this. Slowly, she stood up and walked to the front of the room on shaky legs. Her mom handed her the tablet with an encouraging nod. On the screen, Maya could see a three-dimensional rendering of the Martian surface. A small rover sat in the center, waiting for commands. Elena stood beside her, guiding her through the controls. Okay, so you see these arrows? Those control direction. And this slider controls speed. But remember, you have to watch out for obstacles. The rover's smart, but we have to give it good instructions. Maya touched the screen carefully, moving the virtual rover forward. It rolled over the red terrain, its cameras showing different angles of the landscape. When she steered it around a large rock, the whole class applauded. Perfect, Elena said proudly. You're a natural. Several other students got turns with the simulator, each one more engaged than the last. Lily managed to navigate through a tricky crater. Kevin successfully avoided a field of sharp rocks. Even Rachel, who had been one of the doubters, became completely absorbed in the task, asking technical questions about how the real commands were transmitted. When Derek's turn came, he approached slowly. He took the tablet from Elena and stared at the screen for a moment before starting. His movements were careful, deliberate. When he finished his turn and handed the tablet back, he finally looked at Maya. That was actually really cool, he said quietly. It wasn't an apology, not exactly, but his voice carried something that hadn't been there before. Respect. Elena then pulled out one more surprise. From her bag, she retrieved a stack of photographs, high-quality prints of various Mars landscapes. She spread them across a desk. These are all images directly from Perseverance's cameras, she explained, and I'm going to leave them here as a gift for your classroom. Mrs. Peterson, If you'd like, your students can study them. Use them for projects, whatever you think would be valuable. Mrs. Peterson's eyes went wide. Are you serious? These are incredible. Thank you so much. There's one more thing I want to share, Elena said, her voice taking on a more serious tone. She clicked to a new slide that showed a group photo of her team at NASA. It was diverse, men and women of different ethnicities, ages and backgrounds, all wearing NASA gear and smiling at the camera. This is my team, Elena said. Engineers from all over the world. Different countries, different languages, different backgrounds. But we all share something in common. We're passionate about exploration and discovery. Space doesn't belong to any one type of person. It belongs to anyone who's willing to dream big and work hard. She paused, making eye contact with students around the room. Some of you might be sitting there thinking, that's cool, but I could never do that. Maybe you think you're not smart enough, or you don't come from the right family, or people like you don't become engineers. But I'm here to tell you that's absolutely wrong. Her voice grew stronger, more passionate. I've worked with engineers who grew up poor, engineers who were the first in their families to go to college, engineers who spoke English as a second or third language, engineers who faced discrimination and doubt. And you know what? They're brilliant. They're some of the smartest people I've ever met, and they help send robots to Mars. Elena walked closer to the students, her presence commanding but warm. The only real limitation is giving up. Yes, you'll have to study. Yes, you'll have to work hard. Yes, some people might doubt you along the way, but if you have curiosity and determination, you can do remarkable things. And I mean that literally. You could be the person who designs the spacecraft that takes humans to Mars. You could be the engineer who figures out how to build bases on the moon. You could be the scientist who discovers life on another planet. She let those possibilities settle over the room like stardust. So when someone laughs at your dreams, Elena said, and Maya knew she was talking about what had happened 2 weeks ago without directly saying it. Remember that laughter often comes from people who've stopped dreaming themselves. Don't let their limited imagination become your ceiling. The room erupted in applause, not polite, obligatory clapping, but genuine, enthusiastic applause. Mrs. Peterson was clapping the hardest, her eyes shining. Even Mr. Chen was nodding appreciatively. Now, Elena said as the applause died down, I'd love to answer any questions you have. Hands shot up all over the classroom. For the next 20 minutes, Elena fielded questions with patience and enthusiasm. Students asked everything from, how fast does the rover go? To what's it like seeing Mars for the first time? To how do I become an engineer? Derek raised his hand tentatively. Elena called on him. Dr. Torres, he said, his voice small in a way Maya had never heard before. I have a question, but it's not about Mars. Go ahead, Elena encouraged. Derek glanced at Maya, then back to Elena. When people doubted you, how did you keep going?
How did you not just give up?
The question hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Everyone knew what he was really asking, what he was really acknowledging. Elena's expression softened. That's actually the best question I've gotten today. The truth is, it hurt. The lunch bell rang, but nobody moved. Students were still clustered around Elena, firing questions and examining the rover equipment like it was the most precious thing they'd ever seen. Mrs. Peterson had to gently remind everyone twice that they needed to head to the cafeteria. Dr. Torres, would you like to join us for lunch? Mrs. Peterson asked. I'm sure the students would love to continue talking with you. Elena glanced at Maya, who nodded eagerly. I'd be happy to. The cafeteria was buzzing with energy that afternoon. Word had spread quickly through the school about the NASA presentation, and students from other classes kept walking past their table, trying to catch a glimpse of the engineer who'd brought Mars to their school. Maya sat next to her mom with Zoe on her other side. For the first time in 2 weeks, she felt completely relaxed. The knot of anxiety that had been sitting in her stomach since that first day had finally dissolved. Your mom is literally the coolest person ever, Zoe whispered. Did you see everyone's faces? It was like watching their brains explode. Maya giggled. It had been pretty spectacular. Across the cafeteria, she noticed Derek sitting with his friends. He kept glancing over at their table, and finally, after what looked like an internal debate, he stood up and walked over. His friends watched him go, whispering among themselves. Excuse me, Derek said, standing awkwardly by their table. Dr. Torres and Maya, can I talk to you for a second? Elena looked up with an open, kind expression. Of course. Derek shifted his weight from foot to foot, clearly uncomfortable. He took a deep breath. I want to apologize. To both of you. I was really rude 2 weeks ago when Maya said you worked at NASA. I laughed and I got other people to laugh too, and that was wrong. The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable. Maya saw his hands trembling slightly at his sides. I made assumptions about what was possible based on, I don't know, stupid things that don't matter. And I'm really sorry. Your presentation was amazing, and I learned a lot, and I feel really bad about what I did. Elena studied him for a moment, then smiled gently. Derek, right? He nodded. Thank you for apologizing. That takes courage. And you know what? The fact that you can recognize when you were wrong and actually say it out loud, that's a sign of real maturity. A lot of adults never learn how to do that. Derek's shoulders relaxed slightly. Really? Really, Elena confirmed. We all make mistakes. We all have moments when we let our biases or assumptions guide us instead of staying open to possibilities. What matters is what we do after. Do we double down on being wrong or do we learn and grow? Derek looked at Maya. I'm really sorry. I was a jerk. Maya had imagined this moment 100 times over the past 2 weeks. In some versions, she'd imagined herself being cold, making him feel as bad as he'd made her feel. But now, looking at him standing there, genuinely apologetic, she found she didn't want to do that. Thanks for saying that, Maya said. It really hurt when everyone laughed. I know, Derek said quietly. And I'm sorry. Apology accepted, Maya said, and she meant it. Derek smiled with visible relief. Cool. Also, do you think your mom would be willing to talk to my science class? I think they'd really love to hear about Mars. Elena laughed. I'd be happy to if your teacher wants to arrange it. As Derek walked back to his table, Zoe leaned over. That was big of you, she said to Maya. I would have made him grovel more. Maya shrugged. My mom always says that holding on to anger is like carrying around a heavy backpack. Eventually, it just makes you tired. The rest of lunch was a blur of students stopping by to ask Elena questions, to look at the photos she'd brought, to tell her about their own dreams of becoming scientists or engineers or astronauts. A girl named Crystal, who was usually very quiet, shyly admitted she'd always loved space but never thought she could actually work in that field. Why not? Elena asked her. I don't know, Crystal said, looking down. I guess I never saw anyone who looked like me doing it. Elena put a hand on the girl's shoulder. Well, now you have. And I'm going to tell you something important. Representation matters, but it shouldn't be a requirement. You don't need permission from anyone to chase your dreams. You don't need to wait until someone who looks exactly like you does it first. You can be the first. That's even more powerful. Crystal's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Thank you. The afternoon classes felt different somehow. There was an energy in the air, a sense that something significant had shifted. During math class, Mrs. Peterson incorporated some of the calculations used in space missions into their lesson. During reading time, she pulled out books about space exploration and scientists. When the final bell rang, signaling the end of the school day, Elena packed up her equipment while students said goodbye. Many of them hugged her, which seemed to surprise and touch her. You made quite an impact, Mrs. Peterson said as she helped Elena carry things to the car. I've been teaching for 15 years and I've never seen students so engaged with a career day presentation. Several of them have already asked if we can start a science club. That makes me so happy to hear, Elena said. That's exactly why I do these presentations. If I can inspire even one kid to pursue STEM, it's worth it. As they loaded the car, Maya noticed Derek standing by the school entrance with his father. Mr. Chen was talking to him, gesturing toward where Elena stood. Then surprisingly, they both walked over. Dr. Torres, Mr. Chen said, extending his hand. I wanted to apologize for my own assumptions. Your presentation was extraordinary, and it reminded me that I need to be more careful about the messages I'm sending to my son. Elena shook his hand. I appreciate that, Mr. Chen. We all have blind spots. What matters is being willing to see them and adjust. Derek's father nodded thoughtfully. My son came to me at lunch and told me he'd been unkind to your daughter. We had a long conversation about prejudice, assumptions, and treating people with respect. I think we both learned something important today. That's what I hoped for, Elena said warmly. On the drive home, Maya was quiet, processing everything that had happened. Elena glanced over at her. You okay, sweetie? Yeah, Maya said. I'm just thinking about how different today ended compared to how I thought it would. Different how? Maya considered this. I thought the best thing that could happen would be everyone feeling embarrassed and apologizing. And some of that happened. But it was more than that. It was like everyone suddenly saw things differently, like possibilities opened up that they didn't see before. Elena smiled. That's exactly it. That's the real power of representation and truth. It's not about making people feel bad. It's about helping people see beyond their limited perspective. Do you think Derek really changed? Maya asked. I don't know if one presentation can change someone completely, Elena said honestly, but I think it planted a seed. And sometimes that's all you can do. Plant seeds and hope they grow. 3 weeks later, Mrs. Peterson invited Elena back for a special school assembly. The principal had heard about the Career Day presentation and wanted Elena to speak to the entire 5th grade. Then the entire school. Maya sat in the packed auditorium surrounded by hundreds of students and watched her mother on stage with a microphone. The presentation was similar to the one she'd given in room 214, but somehow it felt even more powerful with so many people watching. But the real surprise came at the end. Principal Rodriguez stood up and made an announcement. Dr. Torres's visit has inspired something wonderful, he said. We've had over 60 students express interest in starting a space and science club. We've also had 5 teachers volunteer to sponsor it. So I'm pleased to announce the formation of the Lincoln Elementary Explorers Club, dedicated to learning about space, science, and pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible. The auditorium erupted in applause. Elena caught Maya's eye in the crowd and winked. That evening, as Maya helped her mom unpack the equipment one final time, she thought about everything that had happened since that first day when she'd nervously said, "My mom works at NASA." "Mom," Maya said as they put the last of the materials away, "thank you for coming to Career Day, and for everything you said." Elena pulled her into a hug. "Thank you for giving me the opportunity. You know what the best part of all this was?" "What?" "Watching you stand tall through all of it. You never backed down from the truth even when it was hard. You never let their doubt make you doubt yourself. That takes real strength, Maya." "I learned it from you," Maya said. "We learned it from each other," Elena corrected with a smile. 6 months later, Maya stood in front of her class for their end-of-year presentations. The topic was My Hero. While other students talked about athletes and celebrities, Maya pulled up a photo on the classroom's smartboard. It was the picture of her mom in the NASA control room, surrounded by screens and fellow engineers, holding her Mission Achievement Award. "My hero is my mom," Maya began, her voice steady and confident. "Not just because she works at NASA or because she helped send a robot to Mars, but because she taught me that other people's limitations don't have to become your own. She taught me that when someone says you can't do something, it often says more about them than about you." She paused, looking around the room. Derek gave her an encouraging nod.